Well, welcome, Dr. Matt. We have Dr. Matt May today. I'm going to say we, and I'll probably always say we. I'm now on the channel. Daniel and I started this together, and we've tried to navigate working together, and it's been great. And also our schedules are hard to mesh, so I'm kind of launching out on my own here. But I've done a few of these by myself. So Dr. Matt, you've been practicing for over 20 years in the Bay Area. Tell us a little bit about how you got into Team CBT.
Oh, thanks, Angela. First, I want to just say how much I appreciate you for doing this. It's a lot to get organized, and I think I even failed to fill out some paperwork and things. And you've been so gracious just to do this and to give team a little bit more uh, time in the sunlight for people to learn about it and understand it. And I just lucked into it. Really, I had some interest in psychiatry. Um, my mom practiced psychiatry for many years, and so I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do with my life. Uh, but my friend said, "Well, go to medical school. You can figure it out later." And so I did. And the first thing I thought, well, just try to help as many people as I can. And most people were having heart attacks and things of that nature, and that would be the cause of their death. And so I said, well, I'll go into cardiology.
Okay.
And I was pursuing that. And then I realized all the problems were related to bad habits, like smoking,
Mm-hmm.
or not exercising, or not taking
Mm-hmm.
medication, or seeing the doctor. And I said, well, if I want to get ahead of this and help people, I've got to be able to help them before the problem gets to that point. And so I got involved. Bar Taylor at Stanford had a really wonderful program where people would be approached uh, if they were in the hospital having had a heart attack. And if they were smokers, we would have a conversation with them about whether they would want to quit smoking. And we had some really good results doing that. Um, and so I was kind of already interested in doing something related to psychiatry, and I was on a the open unit at Stanford Hospital, um, where folks were voluntarily admitted, often with eating disorders, or uh, just severe depression, or pain. And it was challenging because, of course, they had resistance to the type of care we were trying to provide. And they
Yeah.
would get angry with us while we were trying to help them.
Mm-hmm.
But we didn't really see it clearly um, until David David Burns came to the ward one day and just volunteered his time, as he's been doing so generously. And he had just a sheet of paper with the 5 secrets written on them. The disarming technique, find a grain of truth in what the other person is saying, for example. And he passed it around, and we read through it, and then he said, "Let's practice." And none of us could do it. We all just fell on our faces. We couldn't see the patient's point of view. We couldn't we
Mm-hmm.
couldn't name their feelings. We couldn't acknowledge that they felt angry. We couldn't find anything good about them. We were just kind of nagging them in a critical way, and being superior rather than trying to understand them. And he helped us see how to change that, how to turn that around, how to align with people who were in pain and struggling and depressed and anxious, and how to understand exactly how they were feeling and why they wouldn't want our help. And 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 that created a new dynamic uh, with my patients, and I started to see people recover very quickly, and also just felt a lot closer to my patients, and they to me. So uh, David was probably the most profound influence in my life, but I just lucked into him. I didn't know about feeling good. He's a huge publisher. I see it in the background there.
Yeah.
Uh,
Got a few.
it
Got
looks
a
like
few on back
you've
then.
a well-used copy there of Feeling Good. And so that's how I kind of got into this. And David supported me and helped me through all kinds of different issues I've had in my life. Social phobia, he helped me with that. Feeling guilty, he helped me with that.
Yeah.
Um,
I can
all,
relate.
all yeah, procrastination. I had, I'm like anyone else. I've got kind of loads of problems, and he's just got loads of solutions, 50 plus methods. I think 125 methods now. I lose track, but
Yeah, yeah. The beautiful thing is he's always adding more, right? It's not about being stagnant or kind of a one and done thing. And I aligned with so much of what you said, especially, Warm My Heart, you talked about, oh, you wanted to help people, because that's kind of why I got into this too, just a helping profession. But then also you're saying, well, you thought maybe cardiologist, maybe heart, and yet, turns out lifestyle has a big role to play in that kind of a thing. And I mean, lifestyle is definitely close to my heart in terms of being a health and wellness coach. But then I too realized I had done some nutritional counseling with someone, and turned out they needed more help with stress and feeling like a failure as a mother than ever. We needed to work on their nutrition. So it's very interesting how important the mind is, and that resistance piece, and how it's what's right with a person, not what's wrong with a person, that
yeah,
that creates this resistance. And if we don't unpack that gently and with compassion and empathy, it creates a bigger wall. So
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I liked how you pointed out how David has always stayed very active. He told me he's taking off these 3 days, but it's the first break he's taken in 40 years. He's so dedicated to helping people, and so generous with his time. And I think one of his best inventions he just came up with maybe 10 years ago, the positive reframing
Mm-hmm.
technique,
Mm-hmm.
where
Yeah.
we see if someone's depressed, it's because of their high standards, or if they're anxious, it's because they care about the outcome in their life and other people's lives. And often our, if we understand our emotional uh, world in that light, it really takes a lot of the shame that's been a part of the stigma of mental illness out of it. And so I think that's just an amazing gift he's offered to us. And I'm rambling now. I get a little
No, that's
nervous.
it's 100% true. And I think, for myself, coming originally from a coaching perspective, now I've done my counseling, but I'm back to doing coaching again, much more. That these kind of tools work in so many different arenas. And you mentioned, it helped you with some personal work as well. And I mean, tell me a little bit, you maybe share a little story. I mean, I know you're on David's podcast quite a bit too. You've got some great stuff there, but is there maybe something you haven't revealed yet that maybe would be helpful for our listeners, and, that would illustrate how team made a difference for you?
Sure. Yeah. I don't know if I've shared this story or not. I had a kind of upsetting and shameful thing happen to me when I was in my training, and
Mm.
I was on this surgery rotation, which I really didn't like for a number of different reasons. And I kind of went into rebel mode, I think, because I would just come home from work and fall asleep on the couch and get up, and I wouldn't do anything. I wouldn't do dishes, I wouldn't do laundry, nothing. And this just went on until I ran out of underwear. And then I went to Costco and I bought several large things of underwear, and that was my
Okay.
solution
Oh,
to
okay.
that
Yeah.
problem. And then another month went by, and my laundry pile built up to the point where I was afraid of it. And so
Mhm.
I would keep it behind the closet doors, and I wouldn't
Okay.
look in there. I would just open it up and throw some laundry in real quick every once in a while. And then I talked to David about it. I said, I think I'm in real trouble. I feel so ashamed. I'm supposed to be, I'm in this, like, Stanford surgery is like this, it's like NASA or something,
Hmm.
but I can't even do my laundry. And I felt like such a fraud. And I thought, oh my gosh, I was scared. I don't think I can do my laundry. And I felt hopeless. And so he helped me with this problem of procrastinating on doing my laundry. But the way he helped me, what was to see all the good reasons I shouldn't do my laundry. And what a pain in the butt it is, and how my feeling ashamed shows that I've got really high standards for myself, and how my fear was based on not wanting to put myself through something miserable,
Mm,
and kind of self-protection,
mhm,
and it took all the pressure off. I was like starting to feel real proud of my procrastination and my laundry pile. And then he said, well, maybe that's all you needed. And he never tried to push any type of help on me. But then I said, no, I really want to do my laundry. And he said, well, unfortunately, that's impossible. No one's ever done their laundry. And I thought I had misheard him. And I said, what are you saying there? I don't understand. And he said, well, have you ever seen someone like snap their fingers and their laundry is all done? And he helped me see that I was setting an impossible goal for myself.
mm.
And we did this method, this very simple method. Uh, uh, I think it used to be called Little Steps for Big
Big
Feats.
feats. Yeah.
And he said, well, write down the very first thing. What's the very first thing you'd have to do? And I said, oh, I guess I'd have to put the laundry into the laundry machine. And he said, no, it's what's the very first thing you'd have to do? Oh, I'd have to walk into my room. And he said, yeah. And then what would you have to do? I'd have to open the door,
Yeah.
right? And so it's also an exposure exercise. I started to face my fears in my mind,
Mm,
but
mhm,
he had me write that down systematically, like I was programming a robot to do my laundry. And I felt less afraid of it once I'd broken it down into those small pieces, and I could see, and he had me rate like how difficult each one of these steps would be. And I thought some of them would be near impossible, like 90% difficult. And then how rewarding they would be. I said 0% rewarding. This is going to suck. I'm going to hate it. And so and then he asked me, well, at the end of this, would you be willing to make a commitment for a time of day that you would start to work on this? When would you like to have your laundry done? And we set a time, and he said, and how many minutes of doing laundry would you like to do? And I said, well, I'm going to need to do at least 5 hours of laundry. And he said, no, that's too large of a commitment. That'll be too upsetting to face 5 hours of doing laundry. It's like a prison sentence.
mhm.
And I said, well, how about 2 hours? And he said, no, that's too much. And he negotiated me down to 5 minutes. I was willing to make an absolute commitment to do five minutes of just being that robot, of just doing the things on that list. And when I got home, I started right into it, and pretty soon my fear went away. And when I heard the laundry machine start, I felt this huge wave of relief. It was
Mm,
unbelievable. I was like, I had disproven my belief that I was incompetent and that I couldn't do it, that I was a fraud. All of that vanished because I had evidence right there in front of me that I could do it. And then I actually did spend about 5 hours doing laundry, got all my laundry done. And it was just such a huge relief. And I'm still so grateful to David. And that's probably the ninth time I've told that story.
Yeah, well, I mean, some of them are life-changing, even though, and I think that's what adds to our shame when they seem like, things that we should do, right? There's that should, and I should be able to accomplish this. Um, and then you add to that imposter syndrome and whatnot that you're
Right.
experiencing on top of that shame, and just makes the task even more overwhelming. But I love little steps for big feats, and I think that it's extremely powerful. It reminds me of SMART goals and things like that, where we break things down to really systematic, orderly goals. But the first goal's got to be absurd, right? It's got to be so simple to the point of being absurd. Otherwise, it's too big a commitment. Um,
Yeah. When I get stuck, I'll just wash one spoon, and then my motivation arrives and I can get
yeah,
things going again. Yeah.
I remember when I was doing my depression recovery program, they had said, well, just put your shoes on. You don't have to go for a walk, but just put your shoes on. And then you can go sit on the couch. And I've used that since. And there's been times where I didn't think I could go for a walk because I have fibromyalgia. And sometimes I'm just so exhausted. I think, oh, it's just not possible. And then the thought will come to me, well, would you pee your pants? I'm like, well, no, I wouldn't. So that means I could get off the couch if I'm not going to pee my pants, right?
I love that.
And
Yeah, that's
yeah,
great.
so those
Yeah.
kinds of thoughts and things are helpful. Well, we have, our time went really fast. We have about 5 more minutes. Is there any aspect of team that you found challenging?
Oh, many of them. Probably the most challenging was letting go of my own ego and belief that I was supposed to help the patient rather
Mm,
than understand the patient and see and bring to awareness their resistance. And so getting that idea of having the zero effect, not trying to uh, take away anything or push anything, but just being right there present. And I think that's really hard because when we see someone suffering, if we have a lot of compassion, like we want to help them out of that suffering rather than understand and be right there next to them in the suffering. Um, that's an uncomfortable place to be, and it's kind of scary at times.
yeah, we'd much rather fix it, right? We'd rather be doing something
Yeah,
than being something.
yeah, and of course that just creates this dynamic where the we're throwing help at someone and they're blocking it, and we
Hmm.
think they're resisting, but we're causing them to resist.
Yeah, yeah. And that's I mean, that's hard for practitioners to take. That's a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah, yeah,
That that
and do you have opportunities to help practitioners if they want to learn how to get into that mindset and how to talk with their patients? Do you run classes? And
I do. Yeah.
yeah,
Are you plugging me now?
I'm plugging you now. Yeah, yeah. Where can people
Yeah.
learn more?
Yeah. Well, I was gonna do that for you, Matt, but we'll definitely put some stuff in the description for sure. I mean, trainers can check me out at teamcbt.ca. And where can they find you, Matt?
Oh yeah, you can just email me, Matthew dot May dot MD at gmail.com.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was great to have you on. I really appreciated your time. So, Matt, one last question before we go, and that
All
it's the
right.
question we always ask everyone who comes on here. What's one thing about team you'd like all our listeners to know?
Oh gosh. Well, we could maybe one aspect of team that doesn't get talked about a lot has to do with process resistance. You know, we oftentimes talk about the magic button and why people wouldn't press it, and that's outcome resistance. Uh, but a lot of times we don't talk about the the process resistance, like when people want to overcome anxiety, for example, there's a price to pay. You know, it's up front. We don't overcome our anxiety and then go face our fears. We do the opposite of that. We face our fears while we're afraid of them. And and so to have that type of conversation with our patients and acknowledge that with them, and you know, I think that's what I would love people to focus on a little bit more in team, is to understand what stands in the way in terms of the price to pay for change, and to
Hmm.
be able to, you know, bring that to the patient in an honest way and say, hey, I think I've got real a real cure for you, but the price is kind of high and you might not want to pay it, right? And to be able to get behind that resistance rather than trying to push help, but trying to acknowledge why they might not want that help, um, is a skill set I think is really worth developing, in part because it's just um, you know, the ethical element of it. Like we don't want to offer treatment without acknowledging that there may be side effects. And in the case of
Right.
overcoming anxiety, there's a side effect immediately, which is our anxiety goes up first.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Well, that and there's other side effects that we think are actually positive, but might actually be holding us back. And that is one of the side effects of dealing with your anxieties. It might go away.
Oh, that's a good point too. Yeah. What if I didn't have any anxiety? something really bad might happen. I might not be
Yeah,
on my
yeah, yeah, that magical
toes and
thinking.
alert
Yeah.
and aware, right?
So
Love that.
so many interesting ways that it happens. I remember talking with a colleague. We've done some trainings together. And she's gotten so good at process resistance and about telling clients, you know, I'm sure you don't want to do this, that it gets to be hard for them to not, they want to work with her. So there's a kind of a misnomer. It goes both ways. I've definitely had clients who we've done positive reframing, and they were like, you know what, I think I should hold on to my anger, and I'm gonna keep feeling this way, and it's all good, or my anxiety.
Yeah,
And then at the same time, I've had clients I thought, oh, they're not gonna want to do all this homework, and it's gonna be a lot of work. And I keep telling them how much work it's gonna be, and they're like, no problem. Let's go
yeah,
on your wait list. And my friend, she has this wait list because she's, you know, on maternity leave, because, you know, it seems like when you really lay it out, people feel they really appreciate the honesty. So I just want to tag on, I guess, my little two bits is that for the therapists who don't know what Team CBT is and what we're talking about, and it sounds scary to hold your patients and clients accountable and that you're going to lose them all,
right.
sometimes they get even more. In fact, I wouldn't say sometimes, they do, they get more engaged and more committed to wanting to do the work. Or they realize it isn't the work they wanted to do, and you're not wasting time butting heads over what should and shouldn't be accomplished. So.
Exactly. They can kind of decide, yeah, that's absolutely not for me. And either one is a win-win. Yeah,
Absolutely, absolutely. Client is in the driver's seat. We treat people, not disorders.
I love that statement. Thank you.
Yeah, it's David's, of course.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly. We can just keep recycling the words of the wise uh, Dr. Burns. But thank you again for having me on the show. I'd love to come back anytime. And
yeah,
if
yeah,
listeners have questions, I'm happy to provide my best answer.
sounds good. So people, put your questions in the comment section. Thank you so much, Matt.